We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including all kinds of NHL trade talk. We're taking a look at the future of Canucks superstar defenseman Quinn Hughes. If the Canucks decided to move him this year, could the Red Wings be a logical landing spot for the superstar defenseman? We'll discuss the latest comments from Elliotte Friedman on such type of move. Plus, we have some rumors around the Montreal Canadiens. If they're going to make a big splash, some think it might actually be around goaltending, which apparently has been a growing concern for the management group there. Plus, we have some trade talk around the Seattle Kraken here as well. Plus, we have some other updates on Carolina ownership maybe getting changed here a little bit, with Tom Dundon set to possibly sell a stake in the team. Lots of injury updates. The IIHF Hall of Fame class for 2026 has been announced, and a whole lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Of course, we'll get into a lot of the trade talk here in just a few minutes' time. But first, we have a bunch of other updates here, including some injury updates and some roster moves from a variety of NHL teams. For starters, the Tampa Bay Lightning today confirmed that they've sent defenseman Max Groushev back to the American Hockey League. The Anaheim Ducks have confirmed goaltender Peter Mrazek's out 2 to 3 weeks, and that's after Lucas Dostal was injured and was out for a similar time frame. So they're going to be without their number 1 and number 2 goaltenders for an extended time. Ville Husso right now is up with the club and one of their other minor leaguers, so they better had a great start to the season, but they're going to be in a tough situation here possibly without both those two guys for a good stretch here. The Utah Mammoth have recalled defenseman Maverick Lamoureux, so he's back on the NHL roster. Terrible news out of Dallas today. We learned that Tyler Seguin might be done for the season. Apparently, he has suffered a pretty serious ACL injury. We just saw this a few days back with Kyle Palmieri of the Islanders, where he needed surgery, 6 to 8 month recovery. It's a huge recovery. But of course, it depends on the severity, right? So we don't know the full extent of Seguin yet. But the coach there in Dallas did confirm that his season is most likely over, but they're waiting to confirm that. When they say season over, we're not 100% certain yet if we can say playoffs are over. Obviously, with the Dallas Stars being one of the top teams in the Western Conference, they would probably be confident in saying that they might be able to make a deep run in the Western Conference playoffs again, right? So clearly, if they think they're going to make it to the conference final, Stanley Cup final, etc., if he can come back for that, maybe instead of spending his money and going through the season-ending LTIR process, maybe they hold off. We'll have to wait and see how they proceed here. We need a little bit more confirmation on the exact diagnosis and timeline on Seguin, but ACL injuries are long-term, usually at least 6 months. So, looking at the calendar here, we're into December now, so January, February, March, April, May, June. So probably looking at a best-case scenario of June, to be honest. I don't see how he could come back for the playoffs, at least not the beginning of it. They'd have to go really deep to have any chance, and even then, the odds may be against them. So his season probably is over. But we'll wait for confirmation from the team in the coming days here. The Vancouver Canucks today confirmed that goaltender Nikita Tolopilo and defenseman Elias Pettersson, so DPD as they call him, both have been returned and sent down to the American Hockey League. The Boston Bruins today returned Riley Tufte back to the AHL as well. The Avalanche recalled Trent Miner, so he's back to the NHL roster. Same thing goes for Flyers recalling forward Carl Grundstrom. And the Washington Capitals returned Bogdan Triniev to the American Hockey League here as well. Now, of course, a big honoring tonight. The Montreal Canadiens have finally taken time to honor long-time defenseman Andrei Markov as they did battle with the Winnipeg Jets. The Montreal Canadiens did bounce back after a 5-2 loss to the Senators last night. They beat the Jets in a shootout. Tonight on home ice, they had a back-to-back on home ice here, both ends of it. Markov, of course, was a long-time member of that blue line. They called him the general at times. Obviously, 990 games played, all in a Habs uniform. Had a lot of really good years there. Oftentimes was their number 1 or number 2 D-man for a long time. I know when he was paired with PK Subban, that were one of the top D pairings around. So certainly nice to see him return and be honored by the organization. A lot of people felt he was done dirty when he departed, that it really wasn't his choice. He wanted to come back and sign at least a 1-year contract with Montreal. Marc Bergevin, the GM at the time, of course, opted not to sign Markov. Instead went and gave out a horrible contract. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but a contract that turned out to be horrible to Karl Alzner. as a potential top 4 replacement for Markov. I mean, at Markov's stage of his career, he was definitely slowing down. He definitely would have had to have a reduced role. But, for somebody who's given you that many games and that much effort and given that much to the organization, to do a 1-year contract at a reduced role, even if he didn't play every night, I still think they had a major missed opportunity to do right by him and to get him to 1,000 games as a member of the Montreal Canadiens, which is not something a lot of players get to do, 1,000 games with one team. But at least he got to be back in Montreal tonight and be honored for all he's done as a member of the Montreal Canadiens. As I mentioned as well, we have a couple of other updates, one around ownership in Carolina. So Carolina owner Tom Dundon, who of course we know is a very successful billionaire, is selling a significant stake in the Hurricanes. Now, he is still expected to be the majority owner, so I don't think this is going to be a case of him. He's not trying to just get out of this. That's not the scenario at all. What's going on is Tom Dundon is actually buying the Portland Trailblazers of the NBA. So obviously he needs to liquidate some of his money that's tied up and selling a significant chunk of the Hurricanes, whose value has risen significantly since he's took over the ownership of that team and bought the team a number of years ago. He's brought great stability to that franchise, and obviously he's looking to kind of cash in on its increase in value and to take that money to adding a second professional sports franchise to his portfolio. So obviously that's a big opportunity here for Dundon. So we're not sure exactly on who the party's going to be, or maybe there's more than one. We don't know the exact percentage that he's selling, but like I said, he is expected to retain majority ownership, so he should have at least a 50% stake remaining. Now, a couple of updates when it comes to international hockey. One, the IIHF announced today its Hall of Fame class for the year of 2026 coming up, and many members of this class have long ties to the NHL. A few of these players, of course, did not, but I want to mention some of these players that you would all know and are going to be recognized internationally here in the IIHF Hall of Fame. For example, former longtime Buffalo Sabre, member of Austria's national team, Thomas Vanek, is being inducted. On Canada's side, I mean, it's obviously one of the top female performers of her time and generation. Cassie Campbell-Pascal is in this class. Longtime Bruins captain, Stanley Cup champion, international champion, of course, gold medalist for Canada, Patrice Bergeron. Bergeron's in this class. Sweden's Nicholas Kronwall, of course, a longtime member of the Detroit Red Wings, also in this class as well. And as a builder, we have Ralph Kruger, of course, who's been a multiple-time NHL head coach. Unfortunately, didn't have a ton of success at the head coaching level in the NHL, but he was a critical piece to the Swiss national team throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, helping build that program and elevate them as a stronger hockey country. So Kruger does deserve recognition for those efforts for sure, and all these members and a few others that, of course, that are not linked to the NHL are going to be honored here coming up early next year when the 2026 International Ice Hockey Federation Hall of Fame class is officially inducted. Now, back to the Olympics for a minute. We got a fairly significant update today on the 2026 Olympics taking place in Italy and where the NHL stands on some of the issues going on with the arena. We found out yesterday, in case you missed it, that the arena that's being built, not only are they behind schedule and it's not ready yet, but it's smaller. It doesn't even meet NHL standards. It's not going to meet the specs and sizes of what the NHL arenas are, which is surprising because that was the agreement that the NHL had with the International Ice Hockey Federation and the Olympic Committee here, is that they were going to build the arena to NHL specs. It wasn't going to be like an Olympic size. It was an NHL size. But it's actually going to fall about 3 feet short, which is just really odd. And how and why the IOC signed off on this kind of behind the NHL's back without anybody knowing about it. It's just really bizarre. So, I mean, that's a major concern, but it's not going to stop the NHL players from going. But Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner of the NHL, did make a statement today saying that if the arena's not ready, that they're going to have to not go. Like, they don't have a plan B for this hockey tournament to be held anywhere else. Now, of course, in that part of Europe, there's lots of arenas. There's lots of hockey around. There's probably not very many arenas, very few that would kind of meet the standards of an Olympic tournament, or to have even host an NHL game. Now, there are parts of Europe that we know that can and have done this before. If you look at the NHL, where they travel a lot for the global series, there's certainly opportunities. When you get into more of the bigger hockey nations, whether it's Sweden or Finland or even Germany, like there's bigger arenas in those areas, but of course that's not in Italy. Even Switzerland, there's other areas too that could probably have helped out and hosted, but clearly that's usually not how things work. And like I said, there is no plan B as a backup location for the 2026 hockey tournament to be held for the Olympics. And clearly, if they have an arena that's not even ready, see, the problem is I don't know why this is taking so long. I mean, not like they just found out yesterday or last week or last month that they're hosting the Olympic Games. The whole point of giving them all this ample time is to have venues ready so they can be tested. The NHL's ideally not only wants to make sure the arena's ready, but they'd like to see at least one or two events be run through there to make sure, is the ice good? Is everything functional? Is everything done the way it's supposed to be? If it's never been tested and used, that's, you don't want to be the test dummies to find out that there's major problems and the ice is horrible. You want your players to be safe. You want everything, the conditions to be satisfactory. It could run into being a potential real big issue. I really hope it doesn't. If anything like that screws us out of getting the best on best tournament that we've been waiting NHL players to participate in for a long, long time, I think a lot of people are going to be very, very unhappy, especially the players, even more so than the fans. They've been looking forward to this their whole lives, and some of these guys, it would be their first opportunity to go. For some of them, it might be their last opportunity to go. So it's really concerning to hear all these latest concerns here that are popping up, but hopefully everything works out and that everything goes as planned. But certainly the people in charge of that are certainly dropping the ball, to say the least. Now, on to some trade talk around the NHL today. We'll start with the Seattle Kraken, and an update here on TSN's in the Athletics, Chris Johnston, saying that essentially the Kraken are not quite ready to put up the for sale sign and move out some assets, but if things don't progressively get better, it very well might come to that. They do have some players that they've considered re-signing and extending, but they have to maybe reevaluate here if it's the right thing to do. We've also heard some other insiders mention that the Kraken are a team that would like to add more scoring, but in all honesty, I don't know if they can really add kind of without subtracting. I think they need a bit of a shakeup to take the team forward. I was kind of surprised that they did another coaching change after just one season last year. I've been thinking for a couple of years now, I don't think their issue there is really a coaching problem. I think it's a roster construction problem. I just don't think that the team is built to have enough offense to win. It's just that simple. I mean, they've had times where they've been a pretty good defensive team. They've had times when they've gotten better goaltending. The goaltending has been problematic throughout the entire history. Joey Decord, I think, has brought some stability to that. But ultimately, I just don't know that they have enough pieces there put together to be a considerate regular playoff team. That 1 year, I'm not saying it was a fluke when they made the playoffs and won a round, but to me, it was one of those seasons where just everything went right. They had a whole bunch of players that hit career highs in shooting percentage and hit career highs in goals and points, and it was just like the perfect storm of everything lining up for them, and I did not think there was any chance at all that that was going to be sustainable, and it wasn't. And now here we are a couple of years later, and they're still really a team that's, for the most part, anywhere from bottom to mediocre. So, guys like Jaden Schwartz, Jamie Alexiak could find themselves available if they're going to be once again on the outside of the playoffs. They may hold off on re-signing some of these guys to kind of make some changes, retool a little bit here, which I think is probably the wise thing to do. But they definitely would like to add scoring. They may look at an opportunity, though, because sometimes even though teams are not trending towards being a playoff team, sometimes they're not always just sellers. Sometimes you have teams that can be sellers and buyers and try to do some business if the right player is available to kind of add for the future too. So maybe they'll try to do a bit of both of that, but they definitely want to make some changes here for sure. Of course, Montreal, a team that gets a lot of chatter right now. Like I said earlier, big night honoring Andre Markov. Bounced back after a regulation loss last night to the Sens, beat the Jets in overtime, which went to a shootout. They're having a good season. They're the top three of the Atlantic Division again after the 2 points picked up tonight. So there's certainly not a lot to be super concerned about, but there are, in a way, some things that have been festering. And the word from NHL insiders and the comments from Dave Pagnotta was, if there's been a lot of chatter about Montreal making a big splash, maybe adding a big centerman or something like that. But he's saying now that goaltending has been enough of a concern that if they make a big move, it might actually be more focused on that position. Samuel Montembeault gave up 5 last night to the Sens. He has not been the same goaltender like he was last year. He's not playing anywhere near the same level. He's likely not getting on Team Canada for the Olympics, even though he was on the Four Nation team last year. In the first half of the season, like the first couple months before the Four Nation rosters had to be set, he was a leading contender. And it was like, not only was he going to be on the team, some wondered if he might get the start. Like, he was doing really, really well. And then he kind of petered off a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, he's still on the team, but he's going to be the number 3. But then, here we are this year, again, for the most part, inconsistent, not living up to the standard that he needs to be. Dobush has been the better goaltender of the two. Dobush has had his moments as well where he's kind of struggled a little bit as well, but overall has been more consistent and stronger, I think, than Montembeault. And I've seen a lot of the Canadiens games this year. I've seen them both play quite a bit. Definitely fair to say that Dobush looks like the more confident goalie, and for the vast majority at least, giving them a better result. But again, Dobush is still young, fairly inexperienced. It's fine to give him more and more starts if Montembeault struggles, but going into the latter part of the season, into a playoff series, if they make that, which, obviously things are looking promising, to do it for the second year in a row, do you want to lean on an inexperienced goaltender? That's the question that they need to ask themselves. But to be honest, looking at their goaltending options around the NHL, there's going to be probably at least 2 or 3 other teams that I would say are a little bit more desperate than them when it comes to making a goaltending move. So there's going to be some competition for the small amount of decent goaltenders that could find themselves available. So as far as big splash goes, I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like if they were to do it. My theory here, and I kind of wonder what they would do, I think they're well positioned in that position for the future. Could they trade Montembeault if they can find a buyer to take Montembeault off their hands? Could they maybe try to move Montembeault as part of a package for another piece that helps them in another area? We know they probably want to add another forward. They've got a lot of injuries right now. Obviously, some of these injuries are not as long-term as others. There's still a lot of question marks around that number 2 center spot. I mean, not to say that Montembeault, who's underperforming, is going to get you a huge return, and maybe they don't. But I think moving Montembeault is becoming a real possibility. But I do wonder if maybe they don't trade for another goaltender and they bring up Jacob Fowler. Fowler has been really, really good in the AHL. He's only like 21, but the way he was drafted, where he was positioned, what he's done in college, what he's done so far in the AHL, I think he's well positioned to be the goalie of the future, or at least, at the very least, in a tandem with Dobush. So, I mean, yes, Fowler-Dobush tandem would be very inexperienced, but, before you trade Montembeault, maybe you bring Fowler up and you give him a few games, kind of test him out, see how things are going, get a few reps under him, make sure you're confident that could work before you make a trade. But I do wonder if that could be the move, is to move Montembeault, try to get something else back, not a goaltender, and go with the young duo. I mean, really, if they're playing confident and getting the job done, who cares what the birth certificate says? I mean, there's lots of other young goalies around the league getting it done. Someone look at Dustin Wolf. Marilainen in Ottawa is similar age. Like, he's not playing as a starter, but, he's still hasn't played a ton, but he's been a good support for Allmark. Some of these guys can get the job done. So it makes me wonder if that might be the play. But as time goes on and you get more and more, not great performances by Montembeault, I do think the odds of them trying to move him are greater and greater. But maybe they don't bring a goalie back. Maybe Fowler's the answer. I do wonder. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And lastly, we want to touch on Quinn Hughes. Now, Elliot Friedman, a bunch of insiders, of course, he's a fun topic to talk about, being one of the top players in the game. But Quinn Hughes, we know his future at Vancouver is murky at best. There are definitely some that feel at this point in time right now, we cannot definitively say that the Canucks are going to trade him. But we do know that the Canucks are struggling. They're not in a good spot in the standings. I honestly, based on his body language, everything we've heard, I haven't seen enough to be convinced that he wants to resign. So that's just my personal opinion. But based on what all the insiders are saying, it sure sounds like if the team continues to struggle here, the next few weeks, next month, that they're probably going to have that conversation with him about the future, and maybe should they consider making a move so that the acquiring team has an extra year, increase the value, maybe they get a better return. Elliot Friedman says, of course, like a lot of people assume New Jersey is where he's going to go, and maybe New Jersey gets involved and just says, you know what, screw it, we're going to pay the price. We want this guy. We feel like we're going to get him eventually, and we're just going to pay the asking price and get it done. And maybe they do. Maybe they move a young defenseman, whether it's a Nemec and then another forward. I mean, they might have to consider a guy like Brandt. I don't know if Mercer's going to cut it, but something is going to have to give there a couple of good players going back the other way if they want to do it. But another team that Friedman thinks is going to be right in there and stand a good chance is Detroit. Now, he says Detroit would probably have to give Vancouver a good young centerman. So I don't know if there's any chance they'd move Casper. That's the first name that comes to mind when you hear young centerman in the Red Wings. But there could be, I'm not sure if there's another young player on that team that they really like. Of course, there are some younger defensemen, though, like Sandin Pellikka comes to mind. I'm not sure how they'd feel about that. Of course, you get Simon Edvinsson. But the thing with Detroit, and the part that makes me a little bit reluctant, is that will Hughes sign an extension? Or is he going to ultimately, because he doesn't have trade protection right now, so he doesn't have to have a say in where he goes. So if he doesn't want to go long-term wherever he goes, does he just let the contract ride out and go to New Jersey as a free agent? So if you're Detroit, or you really want to give up a big piece of your future for a season and a half of Quinn Hughes, I don't know that makes sense. As much as you want to add and get better and get in the playoffs and all that, if it's only short-term, is it really helping you long-term? Probably not. So it's a tough situation to say. I mean, we do know that Steve Yzerman and Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, they've done deals before. The Philip Hronek trade, which kind of seemed to come out of nowhere almost at the time. So, wouldn't be shocking at all if Detroit was in the mix. They know, of course, that he's got family ties to Michigan. Went to college there as well. Got lots of friends on that team. I have no doubt he'd be comfortable playing there, but seeing an opportunity to play with his brothers, is he going to want to play there long term? And that's the big question. It could be good for Vancouver to get a really good piece of the puzzle, but I think New Jersey, if they really want to just get this done with and make him a part of their team, I think they're pretty well positioned to make a really good offer as well. Like I said, they're going to have to give Vancouver a good defenseman, whether it be Nemec. I mean, they might prefer to move Hamilton, but, again, is Vancouver going to want that? I'm guessing probably not. And I would suspect they'd want that and a good young forward. Maybe a draft pick. I'm not sure. I mean, Quinn Hughes is such a strong player. You could certainly command a big price tag, but are you going to have a ton of leverage? It's another big question. So we'll have to see what happens. But let me know what you think. If the Canucks go to Quinn Hughes and have that discussion about his future and do make a move this year, does Detroit make more sense, or is New Jersey pony up the price and just get it done? Let me know your thoughts on the Quinn Hughes situation, as well as the other news and rumors we've discussed here today. In the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.